I remember exactly where I was standing when my marriage ended. Not the day she served me papers. Not the day she moved out. The day it actually ended was a Tuesday in late October, and I was standing in my own kitchen holding a receipt for groceries I'd just bought, listening to my wife explain to her sister on the phone that I was nothing more than a walking ATM. I'd come home early from a double shift. My back was killing me from hauling equipment all day, and I just wanted to sit down for 5 minutes before I started making dinner. She didn't hear me come in. The house was quiet except for her voice, and I heard her laughing about something her sister had said. Then I heard her say, "He's just a wallet with legs, honestly. What else does he bring to the table?" I froze. The grocery bag was heavy in my hand. I'd stopped at the store on the way home because I knew she hadn't gone shopping. I'd noticed the fridge was empty that morning, and I knew she'd be hungry when she got back from her sister's place. "He has no personality," she continued. "No ambition. He's just there, paying bills and mowing the lawn. Like a roommate who happens to have a good job." I set the bag down on the counter quietly. I couldn't have said a word if I'd wanted to. The air had gone out of me. Her sister must have asked something about why she stayed, because I heard her answer, "The lifestyle, obviously. I'm not going to struggle when I don't have to." But if I'd known he was going to be this boring, I would have thought twice. He's like watching paint dry. And he's so needy. Always wanting to talk about his feelings, can you believe it? Like I'm his therapist. I walked out of the house. I didn't slam the door. I didn't confront her. I just walked to my truck and sat there in the driveway for about 20 minutes, staring at nothing. It felt like someone had reached inside my chest and pulled out everything that made me who I was. The life I thought we had, the partnership I'd been so proud of, the future I'd been working toward, all of it was just a fantasy I'd built in my head. The woman I loved didn't actually see me at all. We'd been married for 8 years. Together for 11. I met her when I was 23 and she was 21, at a mutual friend's barbecue. She was beautiful and funny and everyone wanted to be around her. I was the quiet guy in the corner who'd brought the good burgers because I was always the one who handled the cooking. She gravitated toward me that night, and I couldn't believe someone like her would even look at someone like me. I spent the next decade trying to prove I deserved her. I should have paid more attention to the warning signs. Her father was a contractor who'd made decent money, but her mother had always wanted more. They lived in a nice house, but I'd heard stories about how her father was always working, always providing, always staying late at job sites while her mother spent the money on things that impressed the neighbors. I thought Alice was different. I thought she'd grown up seeing what that dynamic did to her parents and wanted something real. She did want something real. She wanted real money. She wanted real status. She wanted a real house in a real neighborhood with a real lawn service and a real membership at the golf club and real vacations to real places where the real wealthy people went. And I was the sucker who provided it. I worked my way up from laborer to foreman to operations manager at a construction company. I'd started there at 19, swinging a hammer and hauling lumber. By the time I was 30, I was running multiple job sites and making 6 figures. It wasn't glamorous work. It was dirty, exhausting, and I had the knees and the back to prove it. But I was proud of what I'd built. My father had been a laborer too. He'd worked his whole life to give us a stable home, and he died when I was 22, right after I started at the company. I'd like to think he'd have been proud of me. Alice never saw my work that way. To her, the construction business was embarrassing. She wanted me to go back to school, get a degree, get an office job with a fancy title. "You're so smart," she'd say. "You could do so much more with your life." What she meant was, I could make more money if I had a different job title. She never said it that way, but I heard it in every conversation. I'd come home exhausted and she'd ask why I couldn't just work normal hours like normal people. I'd try to explain how hard it was to run a crew, keep clients happy, manage the logistics of a job site, and keep people safe. She'd wave her hand and say, "You need a better job." But she never had a problem with my paycheck. She never had a problem with the way my salary paid for her car, her clothes, her girls' trips, her lunches with friends, her spa days, and the mortgage on a house I'd bought 3 years into our marriage. It was a good house. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, a big yard, great neighborhood. She'd picked it out, naturally. I'd just signed the paperwork and handed over my down payment. Looking back, I think that's when I first became invisible. Not entirely, not all at once. But in pieces. She'd bring me to parties with her friends and their husbands, and I'd try to keep up with the conversations about tech stocks and law firms and medical residencies. I was the only one there who worked with his hands. I'd watch the wives look at me with that faint condescension, the one that says, "Oh, he's the contractor, or at least he's good with his hands." Alice would ignore me the whole night and then complain on the way home about how I hadn't tried hard enough to connect with people. I couldn't win. Maybe I should have seen it then. But I loved her. And when you love someone, you tell yourself they just don't understand you yet. You tell yourself if you just work harder, just provide more, just prove yourself more, eventually they'll see you for who you really are. I was wrong. The worst part wasn't even what she said that Tuesday in October. The worst part was the weeks that followed, when I kept that conversation to myself and tried to pretend everything was normal. I told myself she was just venting. I told myself everyone says things they don't mean when they're frustrated. I told myself she loved me, really, deep down, and I was being too sensitive. But I couldn't unhear it. Every time she asked for something, I heard just a wallet. Every time she complained about something I'd done or hadn't done, I heard no ambition. Every time she went out with her friends instead of spending time with me, I heard boring. I started pulling away. Not dramatically, I wasn't trying to punish her. I just couldn't muster the energy to keep performing. I stopped trying to initiate conversations about how my day had gone. I stopped trying to tell her my stories from work. I stopped trying to explain why I was so tired, or why my back was acting up, or why I was worried about a project going over budget. She didn't care anyway. She'd never really cared. I'd just been talking to myself all these years. She noticed the change immediately, but she interpreted it wrong. She thought I was depressed. She thought maybe work was getting to me. She suggested I see a therapist. She suggested I take a vacation. She suggested I find a hobby. She never suggested she might be part of the problem. And I stayed quiet, because that's what I'd always done. I stayed quiet because making noise was what weak men did. I stayed quiet because I was supposed to be the strong one, the provider, the rock. I stayed quiet because she needed me to be stable and reliable and predictable. That's the trap they put you in, isn't it? They need you to be dependable, so you become dependable. They need you to be selfless, so you become selfless. They need you to absorb everything and ask for nothing, so you do. And then one day you look at yourself in the mirror and you're a ghost. You've been so busy meeting everyone else's needs that you forgot you even had your own. By the time the holidays came around, I was a shell of myself. My mother noticed, of course. She'd always been able to read me. I'd stop by her house on Sundays, and she'd ask me what was wrong, and I'd tell her nothing, everything was fine, just tired from work. She'd look at me with those sad eyes and say, "You need to take care of yourself, honey. You're running on empty." I'd nod and change the subject, because talking about it felt like admitting I'd made a terrible mistake. And I couldn't admit that. I'd spent 11 years building this life. I couldn't just blow it up. So I kept going. I paid the mortgage. I paid for the renovations Alice wanted. I paid for the new furniture she had to have. I paid for the landscaping, the new windows, the roof repair. I paid for everything, and every time I wrote a check, I heard her voice. Just a wallet. Then my mother called me in January. She'd been having some health issues, nothing serious, but at her age, anything can turn serious. She lived alone in the house I'd grown up in, and it was getting harder for her to maintain it. I need to talk to you about something, she said. Can you come over this weekend? When I got there, she sat me down at the kitchen table and told me she was selling the house. I can't keep up with it anymore, she said. The stairs are too much. The yard is too much. And I can't afford to fix everything that's going wrong. I'm thinking about moving into that retirement community your Aunt Ruth lives in. I felt the weight of it. That house was my childhood. Every memory I had of my father was in that house. The backyard where he taught me to throw a baseball. The garage where I'd sit and watch him fix things, handing him wrenches and feeling like I was learning something important. The kitchen table where we'd eat dinner together, just the three of us, talking about nothing and everything. I can help, I said. I'll pay for the repairs. I'll pay for someone to help with the yard. You don't have to sell. I know you would, honey, she said. But I don't want you to. You're already working too hard. You're already taking care of everything. I can't let you take care of me too. I'm your son, I said. That's what I'm supposed to do. She reached across the table and took my hands. You've been taking care of everyone your whole life, she said. Your father was the same way. And he ran himself into the ground doing it. I don't want that for you. It was the first time anyone had said that to me. The first time anyone had acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, I was carrying too much. I didn't bring up Alice. I never talked to my mother about my marriage. I didn't want to worry her. I didn't want her to know that the beautiful daughter-in-law she'd always welcomed into her home had been slowly erasing me. But sitting there at that kitchen table, I started to realize something. I was doing the exact same thing my father had done. Working too hard, giving too much, asking for nothing, and quietly dying inside because nobody saw me. My mother had watched it happen to her husband. Now she was watching it happen to her son. Don't worry about me, I said, because I didn't know what else to say. She smiled that sad smile again. I'll always worry about you. That's what mothers do. I left her house that day feeling emptier than ever. A week later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer it, but something told me to pick up. It was a lawyer. My mother's lawyer. She'd made an appointment for me without telling me, and she'd already paid for the consultation. Mr. Cooper, he said, your mother has asked me to prepare some documents for her estate, and she wants to discuss them with you present. She's asked that I explain the details to you directly. I was confused. My mother wasn't rich. The house was modest. She had some savings, but nothing major. What was there to discuss? So I went. The lawyer's office was downtown, in an old building that smelled like paper and coffee. The lawyer was a kind-faced man in his 60s who spoke slowly and carefully, like he was used to explaining things to people who didn't understand legal jargon. Your mother wants to transfer ownership of the house to you now, rather than waiting for her passing, he said. She's also named you as the sole beneficiary of her estate. But there's something else she wanted me to tell you. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a photo of a key. Just a regular house key. She wants you to know that your father left something for you, he said. He never told anyone. Not even her. He told me. And now I'm telling you. I stared at the photo. What is it? What did he leave? He bought a piece of land, the lawyer said. A small property, about 30 acres, up in the mountains. He intended to build a cabin there. He wanted to give you and your mother a place to get away from everything. He never got around to it. But he kept the property. 30 acres. I said. How could he afford that? He didn't tell anyone, the lawyer said. He saved. He worked extra jobs. He kept it a secret because he wanted it to be a surprise. He was going to tell you on your 25th birthday. But he passed away before he got the chance. I felt like I was going to be sick. My father had died when I was 22. I'd spent years thinking he'd never really planned for the future, that he'd just worked and worked and worked and left us with nothing but a mortgage and a bunch of memories. But he'd been planning. He'd been saving. He'd been trying to give us something beautiful. You need to think about this carefully, the lawyer said. The property has been sitting there for years. It's probably overgrown. It's not worth a lot on paper. But your father wanted you to have it. And your mother wanted you to know that you've always been loved. Even when it didn't feel like it. I drove home that night in a daze. For the first time in months, I actually cried. Not the quiet, controlled tears I'd shed alone in the truck. Real sobbing. Like a child. All that pain I'd been carrying just came pouring out. When I got home, Alice was on the phone again. She didn't even look up when I walked in. Where have you been? She said, covering the receiver. I called you like 3 times. Work stuff, I said. I'm going to take a shower. She went back to her conversation. I heard her laughing. She was probably talking to her sister again. Probably talking about me. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she slept next to me. I thought about my father and the land he'd bought in secret. I thought about my mother and the way she'd protected me all those years without me even knowing. I thought about Alice and the way she'd slowly stripped me of everything that made me human. I thought about the mortgage I'd been paying on a house I didn't even want. A house Alice had picked because it impressed people. A house that had turned into a prison. And for the first time in my life, I started to think about what I'd do if I just stopped. If I just walked away from all of it. If I stopped being everyone's paycheck and started being my own man. 2 weeks later, I found the documents in Alice's office. She'd left them out on her desk, which meant she probably didn't think I'd find them. Or maybe she didn't care if I did. Either way, I saw them. Bank statements. Credit card statements. Loan applications. And a letter from a mortgage broker about refinancing our house. She'd been trying to take out a second mortgage on the house. Without telling me. She'd been trying to refinance in both our names, which meant I'd be responsible for even more debt. And she'd been spending money like crazy. I'd known she spent a lot, but I'd never seen the actual numbers. We had separate credit cards, because she'd insisted on it years ago. She said she wanted her own credit. But I was the one paying them off. I just never looked at the total amounts. Now I did. And I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. She'd spent nearly $40,000 on her credit cards in the last year. $40,000. On clothes and dinners and spa treatments and things I'd never even heard of. And she'd been applying for more credit in both our names. She'd been trying to leverage the equity in our house to get more money to spend. I printed out everything I could find. I took photos of everything. Then I put everything back exactly where I'd found it and went to work. The next few days were a blur. I met with a financial advisor. I met with a divorce lawyer. I met with a forensic accountant who specialized in marital financial fraud. I told them everything. I showed them everything. And they told me the same thing, She was systematically draining our joint assets and accumulating debt in my name without my knowledge or consent. She's setting you up, the forensic accountant said. She's building debt that you'll both be responsible for in the divorce. She's probably planning to leave you with half of everything she's racked up. I asked him what I should do. He told me I needed to protect myself immediately. Separate my finances. Freeze my credit. Get legal documentation of everything. Your wife is trying to bleed you dry, he said. If you want to survive this, you have to stop being the provider. Stop paying for everything. Let her see what happens when the money stops flowing. I did it. It took me a week to set everything up. I moved my direct deposit to a new account she couldn't access. I froze my credit. I had my lawyer send her a letter informing her that I was transferring all joint debts into her name only, since they were incurred without my knowledge or approval. I'll never forget the night she found out. I'd come home from work and she was sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and crying. Not the fake, manipulative crying she'd used on me before. Real, panicked crying. What did you do? She said. The bank called me. They said our account was frozen. They said my credit cards were declined. What did you do to me? I sat down across from her. I was calmer than I'd ever been in my entire life. I didn't do anything to you, I said. I just stopped doing things for you. What are you talking about? You're ruining everything. How am I supposed to pay for anything? How am I supposed to live? You'll have to figure that out, I said. Like everyone else does. She stared at me like she'd never seen me before. What is wrong with you? What happened to you? You're not the same person I married. No, I said. I'm not. Because the person you married was a wallet, not a husband. That's what you said, isn't it? Her face went white. What? I never said that. I heard you, I said. On the phone with your sister. You told her I was just a wallet with legs. No personality. No ambition. Boring. Just someone who paid bills and mowed the lawn. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it again. For once in her life, she had nothing to say. I've been listening to you for years, Alice, I said. I've been listening to you tell me I wasn't good enough. I've been watching you spend money I worked for. I've been watching you plan to take everything I have and leave me with nothing. And I've been quiet. I've been the good husband. The provider. The rock. I stood up. Well, the rock just moved. The next few months were the hardest months of my life. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Alice's lawyer tried to paint me as a monster, someone who'd abandoned his wife without warning, someone who'd cut her off financially and left her to drown. They tried to get the judge to force me to pay her legal fees, to maintain the lifestyle she'd become accustomed to. They tried to make me out to be abusive, controlling, unstable. But my lawyer had all the evidence. The credit card statements. The loan applications. The phone recordings I'd made of her conversations, not because I was trying to spy on her, but because she'd said things so casually that I needed to prove it later. I had receipts for everything. I had bank statements going back years. I had documentation of every dollar she'd spent and every dollar I'd earned. The judge saw through it. The forensic accountant testified about how she'd been systematically draining our assets. My lawyer presented the emails she'd sent to her friends about how she was going to get everything I deserved from the divorce. And in the end, the judge granted me the house. The house she'd picked out. The house she'd loved. Your wife has demonstrated a pattern of financial misconduct, the judge said. She's acted in bad faith throughout this marriage. The court finds that the husband is entitled to the marital home and the majority of the marital assets. Alice screamed. She literally screamed in the courtroom. Her lawyer had to physically restrain her. "You can't do this," she shrieked. "It's my house. I picked it out. He didn't even want it." The judge banged his gavel and ordered her to be silent. "I'm giving you 60 days to vacate the premises," the judge said. "And I'm also ordering you to pay back half of the debts you incurred without your husband's knowledge or consent." Alice's face went from white to red to white again. She looked at me with absolute hatred, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel forgiveness. I just felt done. The day she moved out, I sat on the front porch and watched the moving truck pull away. She didn't even look back. She just got in her car, drove off, and was gone. I should have felt something. Maybe I did. But mostly I just felt relieved. The anchor I'd been dragging around for 11 years was finally gone. I got a call from my mother that night. She didn't ask about the divorce. She just asked if I was okay. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." "Good," she said. "Now come over for dinner. I made your favorite." I went to my mother's house. We ate at the kitchen table, just like we used to when I was a kid. We talked about nothing important. We laughed. For the first time in years, I actually felt happy. A few weeks later, I drove up to the property my father had left me. It was beautiful. Overgrown, yes. Untouched, definitely. But beautiful. The kind of place where you could hear yourself think. The kind of place where you could disappear and start over. I spent the next year fixing it up. I cleared the brush. I built a small cabin with my own hands. I learned to be alone. I learned to be happy with who I was. And I learned something important. Something I'd never understood before. You can't make other people love you. You can't earn love by providing. You can't buy respect with money. You can't give so much that you disappear. That's not love. That's exploitation. And the people who exploit you will never appreciate what you've given them. They'll just take and take and take until there's nothing left. My ex-wife didn't love me. She loved what I could give her. And when the giving stopped, she left. That's not a failure on my part. That's just who she is. And me? I'm not the same man I was before. I'm not the quiet, obedient provider who lets people walk all over him. I'm not the wallet with legs. I'm a man who knows his worth. I'm a man who learned to say no. I'm a man who finally understands that sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is to stop giving everything away. I still go to my mother's house for dinner every Sunday. I still work hard, because that's who I am. But now I work for myself. I work for my own peace of mind. I work to build the life I want, not the life someone else expects me to provide. And I don't regret a thing. Well, maybe one thing. I regret not leaving sooner. I regret letting her make me feel like I wasn't enough. I regret all those years I spent trying to prove myself to someone who was never going to see me. But I learned. And I'm still learning. I'm learning that being a good man doesn't mean being a doormat. Being a husband doesn't mean being a provider. Being a son doesn't mean being a caretaker. And being a father, well, I'll figure that out if I ever get the chance. Right now, I'm just learning to be a person again. A whole person. A person with needs and wants and dreams and boundaries. A person who knows that he deserves to be loved for who he is, not for what he can provide. That's the lesson, I think. The hardest lesson. The one nobody tells you when you're young and in love and ready to give everything to someone who might not even see you. Love isn't about giving. It's about being seen. It's about being known. It's about being valued for who you are, not what you can do. And if you're not being seen, if you're not being known, if you're just a wallet with legs to the person who's supposed to love you. Walk away. It'll hurt. It'll hurt more than you can imagine. But in the end, it'll hurt less than staying and slowly disappearing. Trust me. I know. Now, I'm almost done with the cabin. It's got a porch and a wood stove and a view that goes on forever. I sit out there in the evenings and watch the sun go down over the mountains, and I think about my father. I think about the secret he kept. I think about the gift he gave me, even though he never got to tell me about it. He didn't leave me money. He didn't leave me property that would make me rich. He left me a piece of land where I could build something for myself. Where I could be alone with my thoughts. Where I could heal. That's what he wanted for me. Not wealth. Not success. Just peace. And now I have it. My mother came up to see the cabin last month. She walked around the property and cried. Not sad tears. Happy tears. The kind of tears you shed when something beautiful happens and you can't believe it's real. Your father would be so proud of you, she said. He always knew you'd make something of yourself. I hugged her and told her I loved her. And I meant it. After my mother left, I sat on the porch and thought about everything I'd been through. The years of invisibility. The years of being used. The years of quiet desperation. The years of wondering if I'd ever be enough. And then I thought about the divorce, the court case, the look on Alice's face when she realized she'd lost everything. I thought about the way she'd tried to destroy me and how I'd fought back. Not with anger. Not with revenge. Just with truth. The truth was all I needed. The truth set me free. And I realized something that I should have known all along: the people who love you, really love you, don't need you to be anything other than who you are. They don't need you to provide. They don't need you to fix things. They don't need you to be strong all the time. They just need you to be present. To be human. To be real. My mother taught me that. My father taught me that. Even my ex-wife, in a twisted way, taught me that. Because she showed me what love isn't. She showed me what happens when you give everything to someone who doesn't see you. And she showed me that walking away, even when it hurts, is the only way to save yourself. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get married again. I'm not sure. I'm not against it, but I'm not rushing into it either. I need to be careful. I need to be sure. I need to find someone who loves me for me, not for what I can give them. And if I never find that person, that's okay. I've got the mountains. I've got my cabin. I've got my mother. And I've got myself. I've finally got myself back, and that's enough. That's more than enough. So if you're listening to this, if you're going through something similar, if you're the one who's always providing and never being seen, I want you to hear this: you don't have to stay. You don't have to keep giving. You don't have to disappear. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be valued for who you are, not what you can do. And you deserve to be happy. It took me a long time to learn that. But I learned it. And now I'm living it. The cabin is paid for. The mortgage is paid off. The divorce is final. And I am free. Finally, truly, completely free. My wife called me a wallet, not a husband. And she was right. I was just a wallet. But wallets can be closed. Wallets can be cancelled. Wallets can walk away. And I did. I walked away. I cancelled the mortgage she never paid. I took my life back. And I've never been happier. They thought I would keep taking it forever. They were wrong. And now they know it. I don't wish my ex-wife any ill will. I don't hate her. I don't even really think about her anymore. She's just a lesson I learned. A hard lesson. but a necessary one. What I want now is simple. I want to live. I want to build. I want to enjoy the life I've worked so hard for. I want to watch the sun set over the mountains and know that I made it. I survived. I came out the other side. And I'm okay. Actually, I'm more than okay. I'm thriving. Because when you stop being someone else's wallet, you finally get to be your own man. And that's a feeling you can't buy with any amount of money. That's the truth. And the truth set me free. A year after the divorce, I got a letter from Alice. It was forwarded from the house, since I'd changed my address. I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity got the better of me. It was a rambling, angry letter, full of blame and guilt. She blamed me for everything. She blamed me for the divorce, for the court case, for destroying her life. She said I was heartless. She said I was cruel. She said I'd never loved her, that I'd just been waiting for an excuse to leave. I read the whole thing, and then I burned it in the wood stove. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. She'd never understand. She'd never see what she'd done to me. And that was fine. I didn't need her to understand. I didn't need her validation. I only need my own. And I finally have it.